Please put your hand on your right eye. Thank you. 係將手擺喺右眼，係嚟紀念翻3個俾警察打到右眼嘅。Free Hong Kong! Free 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 Hong Kong! Democracy now!
Democracy now!
Democracy now!
Democracy now!
Democracy now!
Democracy now!
Thank you, thank you， 多謝大家。
大家好，我係澳港聯嘅 Max。
大家好，我係 VHKTSA 嘅 Eugenie， 我哋兩個都係一個大學生。
今次我哋集會嘅主題係與香港同盟，為民主而戰。好多謝咁多位可以今晚嚟到我哋嘅集會，支持我哋風雨飄搖嘅香港。喺我哋墨爾本集會嘅同時，布里斯班、達爾文同埋悉尼嘅一眾香港人，亦都選擇企出嚟，紀念831人大落閘5週年嘅集會。同樣嘅集會，亦都會喺今日嘅唔同時間，喺全球29個城市舉行，為嘅係俾香港嘅抗爭者知道，佢哋並不孤單。
Good evening. I'm Eugenie from Victoria, Hong Kong's Tertiary Student Association. Welcome to the Stand with Hong Kong Fight for Democracy rally. We are very thankful for everyone who's here with us today to stand up for our home, Hong Kong. At the very moment, we have friends across the country doing the same thing with us here in Melbourne, including Adelaide, Brisbane, Darwin and Sydney. Beyond Australia, a total of 29 cities across the globe are holding rallies across this weekend in solidarity with Hong Kong.
5年前嘅今日，中共否決咗香港人擁有雙普選嘅權利。喺佢嘅框架入面，唔容許公民提名行政長官候選人。5年過去咗啦，我哋望到嘅係民主發展毫無寸進，有嘅就只係濫權濫暴，同埋每況愈下嘅人權自由。單單過去嘅2日，民陣召集人岑子傑遇襲，香港嘅831遊行被無理反對。除此之外，民族黨召集人陳浩天被捕，元朗遊行發起人鍾建平遇襲，香港眾志黃之鋒、周庭被捕，立法會議員區諾軒、鄭松泰同埋譚文豪亦都被捕。香港已經進入咗一個全面威權、警察國家嘅時代，所以我哋今日決定企出嚟，響應香港民陣嘅號召，支持香港全面民主化，落實雙普選。
Today, 31st of August 2019, marks 5 years since the National People's Congress of China had decided Hong Kong could not have full universal suffrage. The decision stipulated that Hong Kong people cannot decide on the candidates for the chief executive democratically, nor which the conference was attacked 2 days ago for the Hong Kongers to stand up for full democracy.
我哋嘅5點訴求 一直都非常清楚。我哋一齊講多一次，撤回送中惡法，立即進行雙普選。
Shall we all say our demands for the Hong Kong government again? Withdraw the extradition bill. Recall the riot claim. Investigate police brutality in Hong Kong. Free and drop charges against protesters. Democracy now. Stand with Hong Kong. Power to the people. Free Hong Kong. Democracy now. Free Hong Kong. Democracy now.
由6月9號100萬人上街到而家已經84日，由嗰日開始呢場運動不斷咁樣升級，我哋香港人不斷努力，不斷犧牲，用各種嘅方法去抗爭，換嚟嘅只有林鄭月娥一句壽終正寢。放棄自己嘅人民不特止，政府居然使用警暴、有毒性嘅過期催淚彈，同黑社會勾結。
放棄自己嘅人民不特止，香港政府更選擇利用警暴、有毒性嘅過期催淚彈，同黑社會勾結，去嘗試威嚇我哋，去壓制我哋嘅言論。It has been 84 days since 9th of June, when a million Hong Kongers took on the streets to protest against the extra 77票當選，而立法會亦都唔民主，係70個議席裏邊只有一半嘅議席係由香港人選出嚟，另外一半嘅功能組別，大部分嘅既得利益者選擇親中立場，依靠極權嘅人，甚至有一啲議員以0票當選進入立法會。呢啲咁嘅親建制代議士唔能夠代表香港人嘅聲音，但係佢哋竟然有權否決香港人票選出嚟嘅議員通過嘅法案，抹殺埋香港人僅有嘅聲音。過去5年，我哋見到要有一個尊重香港人嘅政府，方法就只有落實基本法承諾嘅真普選。This is not a standalone problem. The Hong Kong government does not listen to the people because it is not democratic. It is not accountable to Hong Kongers. Carrie Lam, our current chief executive, was elected by only 777 people out of the 1,200 people election committee. The Legislative Council is not democratic either. Hong Kong people can only elect half of the 70 seats directly. The other half is elected by the so-called functional constituencies, which are mostly people in power, people who are allies of the government. Some became legislators even though they received 0 votes. Despite their unrepresentativeness, they have the power to veto bills passed by the democracy-elected half of the Legislative Council. The Hong Kong government, therefore, does not represent the Hong Kong people. Only if Hong Kong becomes a democratic society with universal suffrage, which is promised in the basic law, Hong Kong government will then truly respect and belong to Hong Kong people.
喺700萬人入面，只有1200人有提名行政長官嘅專利，即使被提名，都要經過提名委員會嘅半數認可，先可以成為候選人。經過多番嘅審查之後，只有3個候選人可以出選，因為呢一個並唔係真正嘅民主。香港人拒絕接受呢個框架下嘅方案。香港人真正需要嘅係公民提名行政長官候選人，係一個完全民主嘅立法會。我哋要嘅係真普選。
The 31st of August decision made 5 years ago is not full democracy, and so Hong Kong people have rejected the proposal. We want the power to elect a chief executive candidate, and we want the Legislative Council to be fully democratic. We want universal suffrage. Democracy now.
中间的这个是孙立勇大哥
Democracy now.
这个是阮杰。
Democracy now. Stand with Hong Kong. Fight for freedom. Stand with Hong Kong. Fight for freedom.
第一樣嘢，我哋想請維州專上學生聯會嘅會長 Steve 嚟同大家分享一下香港學生喺澳洲要面對嘅情況。
Now, we would like to spend some time to explain the situation Hong Kongers are facing both in Hong Kong and Australia. Now we would like to have Steve, our president of BHKTSA, to share the situation of Hong Kong students are going through at the moment in Australia.
Stand with Hong Kong! Democracy now! Democracy now! Free Hong Kong! Free Hong Kong! 大家好，我係 Steve BHKTSA 嘅會長。Hi everyone, I'm Steve, the president of Victoria Hong Kong Tertiary Student Association. 今日我哋講之前，同大家介紹下 BHKTSA。我哋中文名叫維州專上學生聯會，成員嚟自唔同嘅大學，包括 Monash、RMIT、Melbourne U、La Trobe。香港嘅大學仲有好多事值得去做，係香港嘅危急存亡之秋。我哋而家專注嘅係香港嘅民主運動，同關心澳洲同埋香港社會，例如探訪下呢一邊獨居嘅講廣東話嘅獨居老人。
Before sharing about the difficulties Hong Kong students face here, I would like to introduce BHKTSA. We came up with this name because our members are from different universities across Victoria, mostly Monash, RMIT and University of Melbourne. We founded this association because we believe that as university students from Hong Kong, even when we are overseas, apart from having fun together, there are many things we are obligated to do. While Hong Kong is going through this crisis, undoubtedly our attention is on the protest movement and Hong Kong's political reform. When things have calmed down, we'll continue to pay attention to Australia and Hong Kong's social affairs, such as elderly visits, cultural events and volunteering.
喺而家狀態底下 ，HKTSA 主要做緊兩樣嘢。第一係為呢邊讀書嘅香港學生提供情緒同埋實質支援，例如 counselling 同埋陪同報警。有需要嘅學生可以隨時透過 Facebook 去揾我哋會盡力幫你。第二就係繼續舉辦唔同形式嘅遊行、集會，去支持香港嘅民主發展。
At the moment, BHKTSA is focusing on two tasks. Firstly, to provide emotional and actual support, such as counseling and accompanying students to file police reports. Students seeking assistance, please contact us via Facebook. We'll try our best to help. Secondly, to continue to host rallies and protests of various forms to support students were even doxxed, received spam calls and text messages full of foul language. The students were emotionally disturbed. They couldn't even sleep well. A Chinese student with neutral stance approached us to learn more about the events of Hong Kong, but was wrongly accused of supporting Hong Kong independence on WeChat by other Chinese students. They even threatened to send the students' information to the Chinese embassy. We asked the university to provide assistance, and the university said they would investigate this as these acts were very problematic. However, when we followed up the issue 2 days ago, they said they have stopped investigating. We have also went with students to file a police report, but the police was reluctant, and we only managed to file the report when we contacted the federal police.
上次示威有同學出嚟之前戴住頭盔等物資上堂，結果係點呢？上堂俾人恐嚇，俾人批鬥，上下堂佢直情走埋嚟去兇我哋嘅學生，甚至佢喺自己嘅微信 account 上邊話用刀去斬我哋嘅同學。我哋同學校講嗰件事，學校做嘅就係揾所謂嘅 counselor， 想兩個人可以坐低傾，等大家尊重兩者嘅唔同意見。大家你諗下，易地而處，你會唔會想同一個用刀恐嚇你嘅人去傾呢？之後我哋去報警， 警察直情話呢件事太普通、太濕碎，唔可能受理。我想問，係咪因為我哋係香港人，我哋係少數，我哋就應該被忽視，我哋就應該被冷待啊？澳洲嘅政府、澳洲嘅學校係咪可以做多啲嘢去保護香港學生呢？
Before a previous demonstration, a Hong Kong student carried some protest supplies to class, and his action led to Chinese students threatening him in class, after class, and in his school's assessments. One of the most aggressive messages from his WeChat account involved knife attacks. Even though he reported the incidents to the school only provided a counseling session with a counselor and the person who threatened him. Put yourself in the student's shoe. Would you want to chat with the person who threatened to attack you with a knife? We went to the police station to file a report, but the police said the incident was too trivial and the report might not be successfully filed. Are Hong Kong students given the cold shoulder and overlooked because we are the minorities? Shouldn't the Australian government and Australian university make an effort to protect all the students?
點解我哋喺一片自由嘅澳洲土地入邊，仍然受到呢種誰大誰惡誰正確嘅國情影響？我懇請參與嘅所有澳洲朋友、所有嘅香港人，用你哋嘅方法同媒體。
这个是香港，它现在那个反送中做起来的那个叫做连龙旗。
我哋即使澳洲、香港學生，甚至
这个蛮有意思的一面旗啊。
會因為我哋香港人呢個身份。 會因為我哋支持自由，因為我哋支持民主，會好似李旺陽咁被自殺，甚至好似陳秋實咁樣被消失。多謝大家。
Standing on the land of Australia, which is part of the free world, we should not receive any form of intimidation. I sincerely appeal to everyone here to reflect the outrageous situation. 那个今天出来比较匆忙啊，基本没做什么准备啊，胡子都没刮，头发都没弄，简单聊几句啊。现在那个香港这个事儿啊，似乎在我看来似乎是越来越那个热闹啊。当然，它现在的这个事件也在升级啊。听说那个驻港轮替的部队有进去没出来啊。那么这个呢，就是我觉得这中共啊，他的很多的做法就是过于的下三滥啊，就太下三滥了，就这样的一种作风啊，确实很下三滥。然后呢，现在抓人啊，各种，在我看来，这种都不是一个执政党应该做的事情，就是一个下三滥，就一个下三滥，他妈一个地痞，一个流氓啊，就这种的。这样的一种做法，这个我让我看不起，至少我很看不起共产党。我今时今日啊，共产党站在我面前，我告诉他我很看不起。就你要武力镇压，你就武力镇压；你要和平的那个退却，就和平退却，不要搞那些下三滥的这种东西啊。这个让人是，第一个我看不起，第二个那个别人我相信也怎么样。那么现在全世界全球啊，就是称。那个就反送中的这个支持反送中的这个人越来越多啊，热度也越来越高啊。现在小粉红也越来越少啊，很多的那个国家，很多的那个学校也都对他们有一定的劝谏啊。那么现在在我们看来啊，整一个活动都已经到了一个比较中后的一个时期啊。那我呢更希望啊，就有中国大陆的那些年轻人啊。能够更理性啊，更平和的去看待这个问题啊，不要过于的那个。它就是等于的一个事情啊！你看现在的
一些活动啊，它现在是你看，应该说是越来越有秩序啊，越来越有秩序化啊。现在刚才有一个小粉红在撕那个他们的宣传材料啊，但后来人被驱赶掉了啊，整一个事情啊。我觉得这个联农那个旗做的还是比较不错啊，所以设计感蛮强啊，设计感确实蛮强啊。香港是跟澳洲一样自由的。Sorry. Sorry.
They may not necessarily see what the truth is Hong Kong and what the truth is China. So let's use this chance to express for the freedom of Hong Kong, but also try to wake up those mainland kids.
Oh, sorry.
One day, we all will be allied in fighting the same monster, which name is CCP. The other thing I want to mention is today, if you guys have a look at the protesters, you see this very special new flag that actually is designed by me. I call it Land on War flag. Just for the record, for someone who don't know what Land on War is. In Hong Kong, people have been using this form to express their willing to having the freedom in Hong Kong by sticking colorful memo notes on the wall. So this flag is inspired by the same visual experience of the Land on War. It's simply combined by colorful squares. It's randomly allocated on this flag area. It symbolizes every individual have a right to express differently. On the flag we have pink, red, yellow, green, all the colors. And that's the spirit of Hong Kong. That's the spirit that Hong Kongers is trying to fight for, is its freedom. And I hope this new flag could be a new face for the Hong Kong's protest identity, along with the very powerful the black Bohemian flag. And thank you everyone for coming.
小粉红对香港确实中共可能支持1笔，可能支持2笔，长期支持。
多謝包雕草。
我估計會。
接住落嚟，我哋有請 Monash University 嘅高級講師 Kevin 去講一下澳洲同埋香港呢一場運動嘅關係。
大家喺 Kelvin 嚟分享之前咧，可唔可以嘗試褪前少少啊？因為你哋都未必可能聽到，成日即係大家可以樓梯上面嘅人可以褪落少少，咁就可以可能聽得清楚啲嘅。Can other participants, if you want, you can move down a bit so you can hear us more clearly. Thank you. And now, can we please welcome Calvin, a senior lecturer at Monash University, to talk about the relationship between Australia and this movement in Hong Kong.
All right. Hey, thank you everybody for coming here today. I'll start off with 2 very direct statements. First, democracy is the sole legitimate form of political organization in the world today. Second, democracy provides the only possible solution to the current tensions in Hong Kong. Now, I'm an academic. I'll try not to talk too long. But I will say, in my field, it's popular to make jokes about Francis Fukuyama's influential but widely misunderstood book, The End of History and the Last Man. People always laugh and say, oh, history hasn't ended. Democracy hasn't conquered all its opponents. What a joke. Now, when I hear people make comments like this, I know that at worst, they haven't read the book beyond its title, or at best, they read it and simply didn't understand. Fukuyama's argument, in fact, is not that history has ended in the sense that nothing else will happen. That would be impossible. Or that there won't be any other political systems that attempt to reject democracy. But rather that in the historical evolution of human modes of political organization, no system has superseded democracy. That might be a little abstract for a rally, I admit, so here's a better way to say it. Democracy is the sole legitimate form of political organization in the world today. No political system has nor will surpass it. And even those political systems that do not embrace democracy attempt to legitimize themselves by characterizing themselves as democratic. The most jarring example of this is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the full name of North Korea, of course. But the same applies to the People's Republic of China, which does not reject democracy per se, but only Western-style democracy, while claiming to have a very vaguely defined and even fundamentally empty so-called Chinese-style democracy. So even those who in their actions reject universal values still feel the need to present themselves as abiding by these values. So my first point today is, no system in the world can or will surpass liberal democracy as a form of political organization. How do I know this? Well, whenever anybody speaks critically or honestly about today's China, a common response is, have you been to China? So, if you are wondering, I've been to China. I've lived there for nearly 7 years of my adult life, and it was precisely my experiences in China that helped me to recognize the fundamental strengths of the democratic system. When you grow up in a democratic environment, it's easy to neglect all that it provides. I'd even say that perhaps the self-critical and self-reflective tendencies in democratic systems, as the sole form of political organization that recognizes and responds to its own incompleteness and imperfections, can even lead us to be overly critical and begin to forget the system's strengths. But when you're watching the evening news or reading a newspaper in China, one gains a newfound appreciation for freedom of the press. Trying to search for something online and having page after page blocked, or trying to have an open, honest discussion about current affairs and seeing people afraid to express their true thoughts, one gains a newfound appreciation for freedom of speech. And watching people be wronged with no accountability for those in power and no path to ever right those wrongs, one gains a newfound appreciation for freedom of association and basic political accountability through the ballot box. Sadly, the only way that people have to vote in China today is voting with their feet. And as we all know, many, many people have chosen that path, even if some, paradoxically, use their newfound democratic freedoms to attempt to defend the illegitimate, non-democratic system that they themselves have chosen to leave behind. So my second point is, having grown up in a democratic country and having spent a significant period of my adulthood in a non-democratic country, I've rediscovered the deep power and appeal of democratic systems. Finally, I'd like to say that the people of Hong Kong deserve genuine representative democracy. It's deeply unfortunate that Hong Kong, with its rule of law, freedom of speech, freedom of association, and substantial political maturity, was handed over in 1997 to a dictatorship that lacks any of these systemic benefits. There was an attempt to manage this very unfortunate situation through the basic law and the idea of one country, two systems. The rights that Hong Kong enjoyed were supposed to be legally protected. Genuine democratization is legally guaranteed in the basic law. But this is not how things have developed. In retrospect, it was of course very naive to believe that a political system like the CCP devoid of any rule of law, devoid of any even basic accountability, and driven by an all-encompassing, persistent desire for control, could abide by the rules of the basic law without any real enforcement mechanism other than Beijing's own, notably lacking, self-restraint. Had anyone taken the time to ask residents of other so-called autonomous regions of the People's Republic, such as Tibetans or Uyghurs, who we see here today, whether the CCP abides by its promises of autonomy, we all could have seen the situation coming from miles away. Beijing's propaganda minimizes and trivializes the idea of democracy as a simple matter of voting once every few years. But democracy is actually about far more than voting. It's about checks and balances, it's about accountability, and it's about the power of the people. Right now, the only checks and balances remaining in the Hong Kong system are the people out on the streets, sacrificing everything to protest every weekend, even in some cases every day. And right now, the only way to hold the Hong Kong government accountable for these types of street protests. So my final point is, the only solution to the current issues in Hong Kong is democratization. Beijing and the Hong Kong government that they control as a colonial extension seem to think that they can end these protests with a crackdown, even with violence. But such a false solution would only reaffirm the fundamental inferiority and weakness of this non-democratic system and would only further escalate the situation. The only way to truly guarantee the prosperity, stability, and development of Hong Kong is to end Beijing's grip on the city, building a new Hong Kong that not only embraces rights, freedoms, and universal values, as the city's people already do, but also has a correspondingly open, accountable, and mature system to truly protect those rights and freedoms. And the only system able to achieve that is democracy, the system that the Hong Kong people are fighting for and that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. Now we would like to have Australia-Hong Kong link to share about their future activities and events. But before we have Jane over for sharing, there's going to be a free sharing session for everyone, for all the participants here tonight. So if you would like to share, please come to see one of our members with yellow vest. So just come down and see one of our volunteers and we can organize that for you. Thank you.
多謝 Kevin。我哋陣間有請澳港聯嚟分享佢哋將來會有嘅活動。但係喺嗰件事之前，如果各位參加者想同大家分享嘅話，可以上前揾我哋黃色背心嘅同事，我哋會幫你哋申請，跟住陣間你哋會有一個自然發言嘅時間。
而家有請 Jane 可以講一講澳港聯嘅活動。
Hello， 我係 Jane， 係代表澳港聯墨爾本。我哋喺度都搞咗好幾次活動，相信大家對我都唔陌生。尋晚我諗大家睇住部手機，睇住啲新聞，我諗大家同我都一樣，好擔心，好嬲，睇住一個一個咁俾警察拉，年輕嘅社會領袖、大學學生會嘅前會長、立法會嘅議員。我想問香港政府，你可能覺得拉咗呢啲人，香港人831今日就唔敢行出嚟。今日香港人就話俾你聽，我哋會唔會行出嚟？我想問我哋會唔會行出嚟？會。我哋又有冇行出嚟？有。由6月開始，澳洲各大城市嘅香港人好多次都行出嚟搞集會、搞遊行，反對送中條例。每一次都有幾百個咁走出嚟，甚至係幾千個。我相信每一位都面對咁嘅質疑。你哋喺外國又有居留權， 點解咁多聲氣？你哋想抗爭，咪返香港咯！你哋喺外國有乜資格講？但我話俾佢哋聽，我哋係香港人，由我哋出世，又係我哋喺嗰度成長，香港人呢個身份就孭一世。我哋呢個香港呢個家鄉俾人搞成咁，我哋係咪要出聲？我哋有冇資格講？又有人質疑，捐咁多錢俾全世界去問廣告，有乜嘢用？係咪賭錢落鹹水海？係咪益世啲報紙佬？我哋就睇下呢幾個月，我哋喺海外嘅香港人，同埋喺香港一直好努力抗爭嘅香港人，我哋做咗啲乜嘢？最近全澳工會佢哋提出暫停香港同埋澳洲嘅自由貿易協定，呢邊澳洲政府宣布成立 Task Force， 保障我哋喺呢度讀書嘅香港學生嘅安全，同埋調查中國對呢度大學嘅干預。我哋睇到歐盟、美國、英國嘅議員都紛紛行出嚟撐香港人。G7 7個峰會發出聯合聲明，要求香港政府、中國政府要遵守中英聯合聲明，確認呢一份聯合聲明係有效，一定要落手。呢啲就係我哋香港人堅持得出嚟嘅成果，但夠唔夠啊？遠遠係唔夠，我哋要更加多，令到外國政府多做多啲。所以我哋喺呢度，喺呢度澳洲，我哋都要堅持，我哋都要提醒澳洲政府，俾佢哋知道，我哋香港正喺陷入於人道嘅災難，示威者被濫捕，遭到酷刑嘅對待，女示威者受到性侵犯，譴責對香港政府已經係唔夠，我哋要制裁濫用酷刑、侵犯人權嘅禍首官員。今次澳港聯主辦墨爾本何韻詩巴雕草嘅講座，目的係唔止開一個講座探討問題，我哋仲有民交外交嘅工作，向呢邊嘅政治家進行游說工作，爭取更大嘅國際支持。我要講，我哋主辦呢個講座時間短、資金少，揾場地好艱難。即使嚟到澳洲，喺呢個自由世界，我哋都感受到呢個無形嘅黑手。但係喺呢個過程裏邊，我發現咗一樣嘢，就係做到啱嘅事、做對嘅事，有好多人幫助。當我哋做正義嘅事，不但只有人幫助，仲有個天會幫助。喺我哋揾場地揾到最彷徨嘅時候，就有人伸出援手。而家我哋揾到就喺 State Library 對面一間教堂嘅下面，容納700幾人嘅地方。呢個講座亦可以喺預期9月4號舉行。我相信大家都相信香港人仲有希望，香港地方呢個仲有希望嘅。我哋努力，我哋要堅持守護呢個地方。希望大家亦都支持4月9號何韻詩